What's going on, and welcome to a new episode of Teams Rooms Tech Talk. Today we have a very interesting session, and one of my good German friends is on the call, Christian Schacht. I'm happy I'm here to not mess up your name. It's good to see you. How are you?
Good. I'm really good. Not so good according to the European Championship, so congratulations to you. We didn't do so well, but yeah, we will see. I'm crossing my fingers for the Netherlands from now on, that's for sure.
But by the time this goes live, it might be a different story. But let's hope that we make it to the finals and then beat whoever gets to the final. Initially, you and I thought about doing this, me in my orange shirt, and then you in your Germany shirt, but somehow that got messed up in the last couple of days.
Somehow didn't happen, and I was too sad on Friday. So.
Christian, for the people that don't know you, what's your role in Microsoft? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm a product manager lead, responsible for intelligent speakers, so really bringing attribution to rooms, what we will talk today about, as well as features that we recently launched, like voice isolation, everything when it comes to peripherals, so all the headsets or speaker pucks that you use at home or in the workspace for Teams, and as well BYOD.
Right, and we'll break down the session today into two different pieces. One, we'll talk a little bit about speaker attribution, the different experiences that you get maybe before and after. And then after that, we'll satisfy the nerds and we'll do some live PowerShelling and some configurations in the Teams application to show both sides. But to start this off, Christian, explain to me. There's obviously the importance of audio in meetings. If there's no audio, there's no meeting at all. And speaker attribution is key. Didn't we always have speaker attribution with these intelligent speakers, and where do we stand now?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So intelligent speaker has been around for a while, where we partnered with our OEMs to create special hardware with multiple microphones to really then separate and do basically a voice print match to attribute people in the transcript. While not everyone has those devices right now, we also now work really hard to do it more in the cloud, right? To really then enable all microphones that you already have in your Teams rooms, to enable them to do kind of the same. You can compare it a little bit with what we have with cloud, Cloud IntelliFrame, where we also do it then in the cloud, but there is particular cameras to do that. So long story short, the certified hardware for intelligent speaker will always be a little bit better because we just get more information out of the device directly, but we're really doing our best to give a great experience here as well.
Right, so no longer do you need that intelligent speaker. It's a nice to have, but we're bringing this technology, thanks to what we can do in the cloud, to many of the different devices. Let's start with, we have many customers already using Copilot, but we know in 2 out of 3 meetings we'll have one virtual participants, but in many meetings we also still have people in the room, and using Copilot in the room has always been kind of difficult because you kind of don't have an idea what's happening and who's there, right?
Yeah, so as you can see here, an example, and if you click one more so that it circles it a little bit, it really summarizes here when you come into the meeting, maybe you have been a little bit late or so on. It would still summarize you like, hey, conference room 1245 wants to have a look at the product roadmap, right? So if I just came into the meeting, that's not really helpful. I really have no idea who should I address with this question, and that is what is out there today, basically, right? Another example is then in the meeting recap. So maybe if we go to the next slide, when I completely miss the meeting or I just look at the AI notes after the meeting, same thing here, right? So the conference room likes to have a follow-up before they commit to Daniela. So for me as a user, that's obviously not super helpful, and that's what we try to make better with this, right?
So go ahead.
Yeah, so with turning intelligent speaker on, if you navigate to the next slides, you can then see that in this case, Mona was actually in the meeting room. Oh, that was not so far. Mona was actually in the meeting room, and she likes to follow up, right? So for me as a user, maybe that is responsible for that, I can quickly chime in and say, hey, Mona, I saw you have that questions. Let me quickly give you a heads up on that, right? Or if I missed the meeting, same thing basically in the recap, that instead of that I really now know, hey, I need to follow up with Mona, maybe offline because I wasn't in the meeting. And then also really important, without intelligent speaker, what also happens is that follow-up tasks will also get assigned to conference rooms, right? So the conference room might have a lot of tasks. Hey, conference room 123 will provide the follow-up, will provide the deck for next week, and no one really knows who's now on point for this.
Yeah, and that's so important, right? To give identity back to the people that are in the room. I think it's often that you are there, but using Copilot, you have no idea who was actually saying what. Where does this stuff get? So what's needed? I think there are a couple of different things that are needed, right, to get this going.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting with Teams rooms on Windows for this capability right now. So actually this week, we will start, or we started to roll out. And it will go over a course of a week or two, and then it will be available for everyone. People should be on the latest Teams rooms build on Windows, at least have a 5X version for this year. And then we will come to the nerd part a little bit, which is then running a few PowerShell commands to enable those capabilities.
Right. Yeah. It's when people set up these, because they have to set up their voice profile, and you're going to show where and how to do that in a second. Where does this stuff get stored, right? I think one of the first questions that we'll get from IT, but also I think some workers' councils is, how does this stuff get stored, for how long, where, and who has control over that data?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So it gets stored as part of what we call substrate. So it's basically in the user's mailbox, right? Together with all the other user things that when it comes to Teams as well. It gets stored for up to 1 year. So if the voice profile is not used at all, either for voice isolation, because the same enrollment also gives you the voice isolation feature, or it hasn't been used in a room, it will get automatically deleted, right? Also, when the admin turns it on, it's still under the full control of the user, right? The user doesn't need to enroll if they maybe don't feel good with it, or maybe like to do it later. It's really opt-in for the user. What the admin is really doing, they give them the capabilities to enroll, basically, right? User always can also go back and update their voice profile, but as well they can always at any time delete the profile here as well. Yeah, that's basically how it works for an enrollment. And then there's a couple of interesting things here. How does it work in a room? So we basically say, hey, so everyone that should get identified needs to be on the invite. I always compare it with when you watch shows like CSI Miami or whatever, we cannot scan or look to 100,000 voice profiles. So it's really limited to the invites, which is also good. And then if there are more than 20 people enrolled, it would stop working. And that's just to prevent as well that we would mix it up, maybe attribute something to the wrong person. So right now the limit is 20 users on the invite if they are all enrolled. If you invite 50 people and only 20 are enrolled, you're still good, right? But 20 enrolled people on the invite, basically.
And that's really to avoid that if you are in a room, I mean, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, we were all in a big room in Redmond, and if the voice profiles would all be on, that would just get one big mess.
Correct. Yeah, it would be just too much. Right?
And I think it's good to emphasize again what you said is the people have to be invited to that meeting where you want to use this technology, because, well, in our company, 150,000, 200,000 people, impossible to load all those different ones.
It would just basically also take too long, right? Then maybe it would take you an hour or two to really try to match them, right? One interesting thing here as well. So even if customers are still in the process or whatever to activate the voice enrollment, even if you just turn on the MTR side, you will still get a result that it at least distinguish the voices. So in case you see it here in the screenshot, right, where it says Kiana and Quinn. So it would say at least speaker 1 and speaker 2. So you get at least around the situations where today, maybe in the transcript or then in the recap, it would say something like conference room 1 discussed with itself, right? Which would be really weird. So maybe there's a misagreement in the room. Then it would at least say, hey, speaker 1 and speaker 2 discussed this and had a disagreement or something, right?
No, interesting. So even in situations where there might be some concerns, or maybe there's a workers' council that's like, hey, we want to review this before we let this go live, turn this on the MTRs so you can at least see the distinguishment. So what if I'm speaker 2, you're speaker 1, or participant 2 is participant 1 on that call? Does that get saved anywhere, or do I then lose that when I go into the next meeting?
No, if you go to the next meeting, you start from scratch, right? And it will just get counted up in every room. If you're the first one that spoke and the second one, you will be speaker 1, as will be speaker 2. Right. So it doesn't travel with you, it doesn't get saved or anything. It's just really for that meeting basically on the fly.
And how does this then link to voice isolation and maybe, and that's the next step, face enrollment? So is there a connection between the three?
Yeah. So let's come first to the face enrollment. So the limit of the 20 profiles that I mentioned will get a little bit larger if there's also faces enrolled here as well. Then the limit goes up to 64. Right, so then it can be up to 64 on the invite that also is enrolled, because with face it gets a little bit easier for us really to say, hey, this is a certain person. And then when it comes to voice isolation, if you're enrolled for this, you basically enroll your voice for voice isolation and for the speaker attribution in the rooms, which then basically means that in the call, you have voice isolation. If your wife walks in, your kids walks in, or whatever, and they start speaking, you would not hear them, right? Even if you listen to a podcast, and I think you had a great demo about that in the past as well. So voice isolation really meant for the people that maybe work in a coffee shop, that maybe have a noisy coworker right next to them, right? Where people always complain, oh, that person in the background is so loud. With voice isolation, you can basically get rid of that and have a better meeting experience as well.
Okay, good stuff. Let's get to the nerdy part. Maybe you can share your screen. I noticed that we lost your screen here, so you might have to reshare again. Let's get into the nerdy part.
Oh yeah, and, because let's see little.
And let's see how we can both set that up from a Teams app perspective and also the PowerShell piece. Okay, so we are now on we're now on your display. This is PowerShell. I can tell that you're being lazy because you have the scripts on, which I like to do as well. By the way, it saves a lot of typos and copy pasting, etc., etc. This seems to be global policies. What's the best way to do this and why?
Yeah, I mean, this is the lazy example, which is really, hey, so all the two policies to enable it on the MTR as well as enable enrollment are basically part of the meeting policies in Teams, right? So this is the lazy version. If you like to test it out in a test tenant, I put it basically all in the global policies. And for your audience, if they're not super familiar with those policies, the global policy is if you have done basically nothing as a customer, all your users will be in the global, right? I think for bigger organizations, that's most likely not true. They have maybe based on different countries, etc., different use cases, etc. So, but this is an example, and let's go quickly through it. So in this policy, or in this example, it would set it in the global policy. The EnrollUserOverride, which is off by default, is basically to turn on the enrollment for the user. So this will turn on the enrollment for the face and the voice as well.
And that's in the Teams client, right?
That's in the Teams client, and I will show you that. I can show you it right now, actually. So the moment this goes to enabled, users will start to see in the recognition that they now have the option to create their voice profile here directly. Also important, users always need to enroll first their voice before they can enroll their face, because they are connected. So always go to voice first and then to face.
Okay.
So the next one, because I was lazy and put it all in one PowerShell here, is the room user. Oh, and now I'm starting to mess up here. The roomAttributeUserOverride, that is basically what is for the MTR. So this basically tells the MTR, hey, activate intelligent speaker, right? And there's two options, and I have a slide about that later as well. So there's attribute or distinguished. Attribute really means it would look for voice profiles, looks, hey, are the users that joined this meeting or that have been on the invite, are they enrolled? And then would look for their voice profile and match the names there as well. And then RoomPeopleNameUserOverride. This is the one for the intelligent cameras. So that also we would look for the face profiles. So then it would also take the face profile and do the labeling with the names on the stage and include those people in the roster as well.
Okay.
The allow transcription true. That is more on the user side because, as you know, if you like obviously to have transcription or also Copilot, it requires to have transcription enabled because all of that really gets fed by the by the transcription service.
Right.
So this is the all-in-one. Let me just to prove that it works. And now let me see if I put there somewhere. Okay. I had the space too much in there. Oops.
And then the first one, if you are not familiar with PowerShell, it connects you to the Microsoft Teams module in PowerShell. And then
Correct.
the next step is to set that Teams meeting policy. And we'll show you in a second if you want to do like a smaller group. But let's start here first.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, I fired it up. I already connect earlier so that I don't mistake my password.
Yeah.
And do all the MFA stuff.
And it seems like, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but it seems like it didn't do anything. So one it does is when you hit connect / Microsoft Teams, it'll prompt you to log in as an admin. And then 2 is to set those meeting policies. And I think you were getting to that. If you want to see if this works, instead of set, put get, GET, and then the rest of the, let's see if you can do this without a typo because I never can. And you can do that for the global policy. So again, you can add the identity, and then you'll see all these different values that are there. And then good luck scrolling through these and finding them, but you might know where they are. Okay, so Christian, that's the first scenario where they want to make adjustments to the global policy, but I think that's not always reality, right? I think it's often where you have a subset of rooms or a subset of partners with a certain policy that you want to set this up. Maybe a pilot to get going. So how do you then split that up? Oh, here we go. Split that up between I love those users and those rooms. You are missing an S on the second line. This will error out. Just letting you know, as a PowerShell, not so much of an expert. Yes, that's that right there.
See? Yeah. Thanks for correcting that.
I think I've seen that before somewhere. So tell me, how does this then work? Because I'm seeing new, set, new, and I think there's a difference between user part and the room part.
Yeah, so this time I really did split it up, right? And let's say it could be also pilot users for the Netherlands in this case. So you first would create a new policy and maybe you name it also Netherlands user pilot or something. And then basically set that enrollment setting there as well. So that would be just the user portion for the enrollment part. And then assuming you would also have maybe per country, then also different policies just for the MTRs. So that would then enable the functionalities for intelligent speaker and intelligent camera, as well as the transcript as well. So just another option to make it a little bit more, fit for your organization, whatever your policies are here. Even in Microsoft, this is how we started. We had a pilot group, we had an MTR pilot group, activated it in a few rooms with a few users, and got started there.
Yeah, and it's good to know that you can create these policies in Teams Admin Center as well if you wanted to. But since you have to go to PowerShell anyhow, I think this is a good way to get started.
Right. So after that, and that I don't have in the commands here because I prefer to do that via the UI, is then really to say, hey, now I put Michel, I put him into the policies for the Netherlands, right? Or I put that MTR, and that is really easy via the UI. You can also do it via PowerShell, but it's really easy to put people in and out of those pilot policies via the UI.
Yeah. So let's break it all the way down. Step 1 is set it up for users. Step 2, set it up for the room, and then add your rooms and your users to that right policy to get started. And then once you've done the EnrollUserOverride, that's when the user go into their Teams application and look under settings and recognition to set up their voice and face profiles. I have one more question, by the way, about the voice profile, because you said something is that people can re-record if they want to. Does it make the profile better if you record multiple times? Is one time enough? What's the best practice?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. You maybe enrolled also your voice from a device that you usually don't use. So in special for voice isolation, that can really help you. Maybe enrolled via my speaker mic, via my integrated mics in my laptop. But usually I use a speaker pack at home. So it just gets a little bit better. There could be also situation, I don't know, voices also change over time, not saying hopefully if you have a cold, it goes away quickly. But those are also scenarios, right? Or maybe you recorded in an environment that was not optional.
Right, got you.
Best way to enroll is maybe do it at home in a quiet space.
Right, and I think this is the final slide where we break down the enrollment and the MTR piece, and it is important to know that you have different options on the attribute user override. Attribute attributes the voice directly to the person, and then with distinguish you see participant 1, participant 2, participant 3.
Correct. I mean, in theory, you could always do attribute even if you're not ready to turn on the voice enrollment, because then there would just not be voice profiles to look at, and you would also get the speaker 1, 2, and 3, and so on. But for customers that are saying, hey, we don't like to do the profiles at all, they can also go with distinguish in this case.
Right. Okay, good stuff. Great. When are we starting to roll this out? Now?
This week, today. So look out for more blogs coming out as well this week, and some LinkedIn notifications.
Great. So when you see this is going to start rolling out. And again, the best practice, even if you're like, hey, we want to do some reviews on the security stuff, we're not ready to let people enroll, make sure you set up distinguish on set this up on the rooms side, so you at least get the distinguished speakers in there and really start adding the people to Copilot. And I think that's a great perspective to have.
So as a quick recap there, maybe, make sure you're on the latest MTR version. As always, you should be, don't be on the old versions anymore. Be on a 5.x at least, that will be required. Otherwise it will not work. And then you will see it light up over this week, and latest by mid next week, I would say we are done with the rollout, and then it should light up.
Good stuff. Thanks, Christian. This was fun.
Awesome.
Everyone, thanks for watching. Make sure, and I hate this part, usually Jimmy does this, but make sure to like and subscribe. All the PowerShell commands will be posted in the description below. We're looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.
Awesome.